Hello. In this technical assistance recording, we're going to review prior approvals and additional justification that may be required if you are awarded an agreement from the authority. One of the reasons that we wanted to require that applicants review this technical assistance recording is because sometimes there is confusion that on the part of grantees that once they put an item in the budget, that item is approved and your agreement is all signed, that they may incur the costs for those items. There are a number of categories that we're going to review right now that need explicit prior approval and additional paperwork before those costs may be incurred. So we want to kind of give you that heads up so you can be aware of it as you're developing your application budgets. The first category is out-of-state travel. So even if you've got everything explicitly figured out in your budget, you're going to a conference in Washington, 2 people are going, you know exactly what the costs are going to be for those 2 travelers, you still need to submit an explicit request, so a letter requesting the travel, explaining why the travel is reasonable and necessary, detailing the travelers and all your estimated costs. We really want you to break it down. You know, the conference is coming up. We've looked at the airfare. It's going to be $230 per person round trip. We think that they're going to be gone these many days. So the per diem at $8 per quarter of the day is going to be this for each of them. There's going to be ground transportation. You're going to really detail all of those costs in this letter requesting the travel. You're also going to document the need for this travel by attaching the conference or meeting or training agenda and a description. That's going to justify, it's going to back up why this is a necessary and reasonable cost to be charged to the agreement. As I said earlier, really do not incur any costs until you've received explicit authority approval. That will come to you in the form of a letter from your grant monitor. And maintain that letter on file in case you're audited. We do ask that you request the travel, send that letter to your grant monitor at least 30 days in advance of the travel. It'll give us time to do the internal review. So your grant monitor is going to review it. They may ask some questions, ask for more information, and after they're satisfied, they're going to submit it to a supervisor for approval. So that 30-day window will give us plenty of time to get the review and approval all squared away and to send you your approval letter to keep on hand, and it will also give you enough time to make the arrangements because you should not incur any costs until you have that letter from the authority. Also in need of prior explicit approval are all subcontracts. So you should submit the draft subcontract before execution. Again, don't execute that subcontract until you receive a letter from the authority explicitly approving that subcontract. One reason that we want the draft subcontract, if you are operating under a federal award, there are additional federal requirements that must be attached to subcontracts, and so your grant monitor will provide that document to you if it's applicable. And after you receive approval of your subcontract, you get that letter from your grant monitor approving it, we will ask you to submit a copy of all the executed subcontracts. So you can just scan that and email a PDF of the executed subcontract as soon as it's signed, and then your monitor will retain that on file. If that subcontract that you wish to enter into is a sole source, there's additional justification that's going to be needed. So sole source is any time that there's only one vendor can supply a needed service or supply or equipment, or if you've done a competitive solicitation, you've done an RFP or an IFB, and you received only one bid or you've received only one proposal, that makes it a sole source. So if you do have a sole source issue, your grant monitor will provide you what's called the sole source checklist, basically a series of questions that you'll ask to kind of justify why you're going with this one vendor. And don't execute the subcontract until you receive a letter from the authority explicitly approving that sole source subcontract. And again, submit a copy of the executed subcontract to your grant monitor as soon as it's signed. For contractors, so a contractor, for instance, you're going to bring somebody in to do a training. You're going to also complete the required documentation for contractor payment form and the contractor rate of pay and or the contractor compensation certification forms. These are documents that you won't find on our website. They're ones that you have to get from your grant monitor, and you'll be discussing this if you have a contractor. They'll tell you all of the documents that you need to complete. In addition, for that contractor, you'll also have to follow all these same things that we talked about before. Submitting the draft subcontract. If it's a sole source, you're also going to submit that. So this is like a third level of approval if this is a contractor. And trainers have additional requirements as well. For any training, you would need to also submit a training proposal that would be reviewed and approved by your grant monitor and by their supervisor as well. They're going to be looking at the content of that proposal. And you're going to have to meet all of the subcontract, sole source, or contractor documentation that may be required, as we've just discussed.